This video was sponsored by Lenovo Legion and AMD Ryzen.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is not at all what I was expecting. This is crazy. I've always seen tons of YouTubers who get like one of these, and I've never been one of them until right now.
All right, so this gigantic package from Lenovo Legion and AMD Ryzen arrived at my door about a week ago now. And inside it was this huge aluminum loot crate.
Talk about a loot box. Oh my God.
Now,
Nice and easy.
I've never done an unboxing like this before, so needless to say, I was pretty excited to be a part of it when Lenovo reached out.
This is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Inside this amazing looking crate was naturally a bunch of foam. And below the foam was a special Legion and AMD poster along with this smaller poster of some character, I guess Lenovo designed as some sort of mascot. I think his name is Corwin? They almost remind me of those, what are those popular like mouse-like statues people collect? I forget what they're called, but yeah, super cool nonetheless. And then below that is of course the main attraction. The Lenovo Legion Slim 5 Gen 9 featuring an AMD Ryzen 7 8845HS processor. Now, interestingly enough, this is the first laptop I've ever had that uses an AMD processor, and it couldn't have come at a better time because I've recently been diving back into Star Citizen, especially since they've added the new Pyro system. And if you follow me over on X, you know that I'm pretty well known in the Star Citizen community for posting photos from the game. So I thought, what better way to showcase the speed and power of the Slim 5 than to jump into the verse, make my first ever jump to Pyro while flying one of the coolest and rarest ships in the game. So let's make the jump, shall we? Right off the bat, I just want to take a moment to appreciate the color of this laptop. Like, this is what gunmetal gray should be. Well, Lenovo calls it Luna gray, but either way, I'm a big fan of this color, especially with the way it contrasts with the black keys on the keyboard. I'm not exactly sure what kind of material they're using here. I assume it's probably some sort of aluminum, but my goodness, is this laptop pretty. And the best thing is that it's not overdone. And while it may not be the literal slimmest machine in the world, one of my favorite things about it is that most of your I/O is neatly laid out along the back. You've got two USB-A Gen 2 ports, an HDMI 2.1 port, which supports 4K up to 120 Hz, a gigabit Ethernet port, and your proprietary power port for the included 230 watt charger. Now you can also charge it using the labeled USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 port on the side, which supports up to 140 watts. Along with that, you get a standard USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 port and a headphone jack, while the other side is going to have your SD card reader and your webcam shutter switch. Now, I personally love this power delivery USB-C port because I always carry this Anker laptop charger with me, and it's the perfect companion for handhelds or even laptops like this Slim 5. Speaking of battery, this model does have an 80 watt-hour battery, which should get you through most of the day with light use, but I'd still recommend carrying a charger with you pretty much at all times, especially if you're going to be gaming or doing any sort of intense workflows. That being said, the 230 watt charger it comes with does charge it super fast, so you shouldn't struggle with battery life on this machine so long as you come prepared. One of the nice things about Lenovo laptops is that they often operate in a hybrid mode, allowing the system to dynamically disable the dedicated GPU when it's not needed. And since this Ryzen 7 uses the same Radeon 780M GPU that you'll find on many of the popular Windows handhelds, you'll still get great performance even when the RTX 4070 is disabled. Now, one of the standout features of any Legion laptop is got to be the keyboard. Lenovo calls it their True Strike keyboard, and is by far my personal favorite gaming laptop, especially when it's in orange. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? There you go, kinda. It also has a full numpad, which I'm not personally a fan of, but admittedly was actually super useful when playing a game like Star Citizen, where there's literally hundreds of hotkeys. One thing I do like are these full-size arrow keys, because nothing is more annoying than half-size arrow keys or those laptops where only the top and the bottom arrows are half-sized. Yeah, that's weird. You'll also get dedicated media keys and a full function row with secondary hotkey actions, which allows you to quickly change things like power modes and refresh rate with a simple hotkey, or just change the brightness or volume without having to hold the function key. For the display, you get a 16-inch 2560 by 1600 IPS display that supports up to 165 Hz and sits at that nice 16 by 10 aspect ratio, but we'll talk more about that later. You can also easily drop the refresh rate down to 60 Hz if you want to conserve some battery when watching videos or just casually browsing, which is a nice touch and is a nice reminder that this isn't just a gaming laptop. Lenovo, I think, does a great job sort of blending that professional and gamer world together in a machine that looks and feels professional, but still has the oomph you'd want when relaxing and playing games without being overdone. But what do you guys think? Do you guys like this gray color? Hit the like button, because we're actually giving away an identical limited edition box with all the same goodies. And yes, with the laptop too. Just check the description to find out how to enter. But enough about efficiency, battery life, and professionalism. Let's see how it performed. Naturally, the first thing I installed on this laptop was, of course, Star Citizen, and since most people know me as sort of an astrophotographer of sorts, there was one particular ship that came to mind for this very occasion. And, well, I had to call in a couple favors from some friends to make it happen. This is the AMD Never Settle racing ship, one of the rarest and most sought after ships in the verse, and for good reason. And just like the name suggests, we aren't settling for anything less than the limited edition and fast as f***. And if you know anything about Star Citizen, you know it's a pretty tough game to run on any ordinary hardware. But of course the Slim 5 isn't just an ordinary laptop. It actually ran the game quite well with spikes over 60 FPS even without upscaling, which if you know, you know. Actually, all the footage you see throughout this video was captured on the Slim 5. Even in the toughest of environments like these volumetric clouds over Area 18, the Ryzen 7 chip handled it really well and was totally usable for taking photos even in photo mode, which is exactly what I did. What's even more crazy is that the game didn't crash on me once over the course of several hours flying around and filming pretty much non-stop. A big deal for a game that literally lets you jump between star systems with no loading screens. If you haven't given Star Citizen a chance, if you've never tried to play it, I highly recommend jumping in and just trying it out. One of the reasons I chose Star Citizen is because it also happens to be a very CPU intensive title, and I'm happy to say that I had no issues installing it and booting it up on this machine, which is something I can't say for some of the other machines I've tested. That, and since this machine also is equipped with 32 gigs of RAM, I was easily able to run the game on first launch without having to wait too long for all the textures and environments to load, despite the insane draw distances in this game. If you've loaded up Star Citizen for the first time on a fresh machine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And after hours of flying around, snapping photos, and a tragic accident involving an invisible asteroid, definitely a skill issue, I dumped all the photos into Lightroom to see how this thing would handle some photo editing. Right off the bat, I was pretty surprised at the performance. My experience with Adobe apps on Windows, by the way, hasn't always been the best. And to be completely honest, my entire editing workflow is normally done on a Mac. So this was a totally new experience for me, but I have to admit that being able to just directly import my raw photos from the game directly into Lightroom without having to move them to a drive and then copying them over to my Mac was really nice. Not only that, but I didn't have any issues with batch editing across several photos at a time. I also had no trouble using Lightroom's AI masking tools and even upscaled all my final selections using the super resolution tool. This is also where the display really stood out to me. Normally, I'm pretty hesitant to edit on anything that isn't my Apple display, but this display was actually accurate enough that I never really thought about it while editing. But I'll let you be the judge. As you can see, I took photos in a variety of different lighting and color situations, and every photo came out exactly the way I envisioned it. But I think this one might just be my favorite. And while this laptop may not transport me from one star system to the next, it certainly does let me capture that experience and enjoy it every time I open my laptop. Overall, my experience with the Slim 5 was great. Of course, all the fancy packaging and box aside, the laptop itself definitely exceeded my expectations both in and out of the game and gave me the best excuse to do what I love most and take photos of spaceships in Star Citizen. And hey, if you happen to be watching this as part of the Star Citizen community, hi! Finally did a Star Citizen video. Maybe we'll do more. I don't know. But yeah, if you want to download these wallpapers like the one you see behind me, I'll make sure to leave a link in the description. Special thanks, of course, to Lenovo Legion and AMD Ryzen for making this video possible. And with that, that's going to be it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. And as always, make sure to subscribe to see more content like this. And I'll see you all in the verse. Peace.